Hey everyone, this is Bancho Cooper here with Bancho Boy Charles, and we are here bringing you a report on MirageGaogamon, fresh off a 4th place finish at the recent CoreTCG Regionals. Charles, please tell us about MirageGaogamon.
Uh, this deck is still busted. They didn't hit it hard enough.
Not quite.
That's no, not at all. No, the Bukamon hit did something, but then they printed BT15 Betamon, which just has jamming as an inheritable, so it's kind of a mute point.
Exactly. So I guess we're going to go through level by level and talk about the cards that you definitely want to run, some things you could run, flex choices and whatnot. Let's go ahead and start it off, I guess, with the level 2s.
Yep. All right, so for egg choices, well, you really got two, and then you got your one of Bukamon. So the one that people mostly go with is Wanumon, just for that extra card draw. That's my preference. Just you have tamers, you just swing, get a free draw, help you find your pieces. It's usually your go-to. Some people also run the starter deck Demi Vmon, which gives you extra DP when your hand is at 8 or more, which helps. It allows the Mirage to swing 16k, so you swing over all other level 7s, so you don't have to worry. Only really about hitting an option that will kill you.
Yeah, something I was actually thinking about with this card was all the Galgamons happen to be 5k, so if there's some weird scenario where you happen to have this Demi V, the Betamon, and you're under a Shine Greymon Ruin Mode blanket, it would allow you to push out your 5k Galgamon and maybe combo
Yes,
off. So,
yes, that is another thing you can do.
definitely some merits to both.
Hmm.
Of course, I think everyone knows about the limited to one Bukamon here from BT14. Just became the only blue egg that was worth running because that gives
Yeah,
jamming way too easily.
yes, no, it was just too busted.
Yep, Lord
Still
picks
good as a
one.
one of. Can be a little awkward sometimes with Betamon, but it's like, eh.
Yeah, another thing with the eggs in this deck, we have seen some players run as few as 3 eggs with this deck to maximize the chances of seeing that Bukamon. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think they're going a little wild on that. It's just like, sure, sometimes this deck only needs 2 stacks to win, but if you're playing against a grind deck like Yellow Vaccine or Seccon, I've had matches where I have gone through all my eggs, so I think you just stick with the 4. Just play your 3 and then your 1 Bukamon and you'll be fine.
Yeah, another thing that some astute opponents might notice is if you're only running 3 eggs, there's a pretty good chance you're running Mirage. Because I don't think any other deck would consider running just exactly 3 eggs, right?
Yeah.
Or at least I guess perhaps some other blue deck that something with Bukamon is that is of course the only Digi-Egg that is currently limited to one. But let's go ahead and move into the level 3s. I think we got 2 staples here and some flex spots.
Yes. So your 2 staples are BT15 Betamon, because jamming is real. The on play is kind of completely irrelevant unless, yeah, it's completely irrelevant.
Yeah, even if like you have Leviamon forcing you to play this out, it would almost work except their Biting Crush is going to go first and kill it.
Yeah. So it's just the free jamming inherit. It's just free.
Yep,
They
generic
took
works
away
in anything.
Pokemon and they gave us just free jamming instead. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And then your second is just the EX4 Galmon. Just it's a good card on play. Both players draw one, inherit it. When their hand increases in your turn, you gain a memory.
Yep,
It's just good.
and
It's
this
the only
thing.
Galmon you really want to play. The others are kind of just like, eh. Like the BT11 Searcher's okay. The Inherited's kind of like whatever. And then the rest are pretty bad.
Yeah. Definitely the hit to Bukamon did a big number on the BT13 Galmon because that one really wanted to have jamming. I guess it had the when attacking, both players draw one. And of course, if you're
Yeah.
not aware, the whole point of this deck, the gimmick is that you want your opponent to get to 8 cards in hand to key off all your effects. So this double draw is very important.
Yes. So yeah, Betamon, EX4 Galmon, those are your mandatory 4-ups. Everything else is kind of just a flex up to personal preference.
Definitely meta dependent.
You could play Searcher Galmon, like I said before. You could play SR Gomamon, which was like your main staple before Bukamon got hit as your rookie of choice, just because it allowed you to keep a body on board if they deleted your stack on your opponent's turn. Also, the Source Strip and the Unblockable sometimes came up, but it was mostly just for the keeping a body on board so you can build up another stack on your following turn.
Especially like stripping out an X antibody proto form, is whenever you go to bounce that card with your bigger stacks, the proto form would interrupt and they would get them a heal, which would make you need an extra swing, right?
Yes. So that is a merit of playing Gomamon, but you also have other Source Strip in the deck.
Yep. Of course, you got your floodgates there, Modoki Betamon and Shakomon.
Yes. My choice for this meta is Madoki Betamon. When I was playing in the regional, it won me several matches. It just shuts down so many decks. It stops Ukomon for one.
Yep,
No,
instant value there.
no memory gain. Uh, stops boosts. It pretty much shuts Lugamon down in their tracks. Either they have to use a Hell Lugar or they have to swing with the BT14 Lugamon to get rid of it. So it's just like you slam this guy on the board and it completely shuts their turn down if they don't have any couple trainings set up.
Yeah, you can definitely put them in an awkward spot if they commit to either the BT14 Lugamon versus the BT15 Lugamon. You know, one of those is going to be able to eat the memory choker, but the other one will get blocked by the memory choker. So
Exactly. Yeah.
once they commit to their play, you can commit or not commit to the Madoki Betamon.
Yes. And then you can play Syakumon, which stops trainings, which is relevant, but it's mm, like Poop is one of the biggest decks right now, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
run trainings, so I'm
Exactly.
kind of a little bit lower on Syako than playing Madoki Betamon, which just hits so many more things in general.
Yep, exactly. That's it for the level 3s. Moving on to the level 4s. A couple of Galgamons.
Yeah. So your only real main staple is the EX4 Galgamon on Digivolve bounce a rookie, and then the inherit is the same as the EX4 Galgamon gain a memory when their hand increases. It's just the one you always want to see most of the time. Everything else is kind of up in the air. Like the BT13 Galgamon is good because it lets you free play Thomas if you don't have one. It can be a little awkward sometimes to actually get that out because you mostly want to make a stack in raising and then push out and go for do all your stuff. So sometimes it's a little awkward trying to do that, and you might be putting your stack at risk.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
the inherited is just if your opponent's at 8 or more cards in hand, you get that +1, which is again can be relevant, allowing burst mode to swing for 16, allowing regular Mirage to swing for 13.
Yeah,
It
I know
does
this
come up
guy
if you
is.
don't have the jamming inherit.
Yeah, I know this guy can be really awkward when you have hands like, well, I've got my rookie, my champion, and a tamer, but I don't have a booster or training. So do I, wait, push out, evolve in the battle area, and get the value
Hmm.
for free playing the tamer, or do I go ahead and free play the tamer turn 1 and then I don't get the value?
Yes. That is the choice you have to make a lot of times in this
Yep,
deck.
and
It
that's why we have
does
all
help
the options cards.
sometimes when you're doing your burst mode plays. If you only have one Thomas and you bounce that, if you were then while you're doing your combos, you play a Galmon, and then you can Evo into this Galgamon, allowing you to free play your Thomas. It does help in that scenario, but that's can be a little niche sometimes because a lot of times you're setting up, you'll have multiple Thomas on board. So
Right.
this one is kind of just like whatever, and it's getting replaced in the next set with the BT16
Oh
Galgamon.
yeah, more jamming. More jamming and a good on Evo, or is it on Evo or when attacking? It's on Evo, right? Both
On
play straw.
Evo,
Yep.
yes, and memory gain.
Oh yeah.
Ridiculous card. So other things that people play, hybrids for sure. You're playing a lot of tamers, so you want to play hybrids. The main one is Lanamon because she can gain jamming while you tuck a rookie underneath her, which is cool. You can tuck in EX4 Galmon, you can tuck in Gomamon, you can tuck in Betamon if you really want. So you have jamming period on that stack. She helps a lot. So the champion lineup's usually like 9 to 10 cards. Sometimes people might play an extra hybrid like Korikaku, since you can evolve on top of level 4, evolve on Lanamon, stun something. Some people play Kumamon instead for a little bit extra source strip, which will combo with Zudo Ace. I even saw one opponent when I was playing the Mirror in the regional. They were playing the BT14 Kakumon to combo with Zudo Ace, which allowed them to completely strip out my Mirage and bounce it back to my hand, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I think I actually had that in my list at some point. That Ikakumon.
So there's a couple of options you can
But
go
then
with.
Ikakumon also has like the male Birdramon type stun effect, where when
It
attacking
does,
you can
yes.
stun something. So that's another defensive play you can make.
hmm That's a cool one, I think. If you want to skew the numbers with your BT13 Galgamon and add in things like more hybrids or a Kakumon, you can do that.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of playing some defensive cards, got Zudomon Ace, which a lot of people think of this as just an OTK deck, right? Because you come out of raising and blow up all their security. But Zudo Ace definitely allows for some more defensive plays.
Absolutely. This card is ridiculous. It is pretty much you can play usually anywhere between 3 and 4. I have 3. It's kind of just like your replacements for your EX4 Galgamon, since it's your other level 5 that allows you to bounce stuff to their hand. It's cool. It's cheap. You can hard drop it, bounce something, and then evolve into Mirage. You can use it as a defensive play. They can never just freely swing if you have a level 4 on board, especially if you have a level 4 alongside BT11 Mirage. Then you can go into Zudo Ace, bounce something in your hand, which would trigger Mirage memory gain. You can possibly steal turn. I did that to a couple people during the regional.
Yeah, that 4 hard drop really good for setting up a. You're trying to break their board, and then next turn, there you go. You got. I think they can go right into MirageGaogamon.
Yes.
You're missing the pieces on like a second stack or something.
And then the source strip can also be amazing, like we talked about earlier. You strip out Protoform, which does not have the protection like the original X antibodies, so you can get rid of that and then bounce the stacks so they do not increase their security, which makes it even easier to go for game. It's just good. Just ridiculously good.
Speaking of cards that are really good, of course, we got the limited to 1 EX4 Galgamon.
Yep, their first try to hit the deck, which did hurt, but it's still really good. I mean, you do draw a decent amount of cards in this deck if you're playing Wanyamon or you play a bunch of consistency training and boost. So you'll see this card often enough unless it's in your security. And it's just ridiculous on Evo, bounce level 4 or lower, and then inherit it if they have 8 or more cards in hand, unsuspend once per turn.
Yeah, and the big thing here is this one being the when attacking. One of the pitfalls of the other Galgamons that we'll look at here in a second is that they're unsuspend can get blown if you evolve into Mirage while the stack is already unsuspended, right? And this one doesn't have that problem.
Yeah, that can be an issue sometimes, but this one doesn't have that issue at all, which is why the main reason they got hit.
Yep. Of course, next set when we have the even more jamming, you'll be able to swing those level 5s a lot more freely.
Exactly.
But we do have the other 2 Galgamons.
Yeah.
They're not limited.
No. So the choice is purely personal preference if you're playing one of these Gals. I, right now in the BT15 meta, would go with the BT11 Gal because it gains +2 for every 4 cards in hand on Evo and blocker. It gives you a little bit more defensive options. The inheritable is fine. Like if you have jamming in the stack, you just swing, then you evolve into Mirage, bounce body or security in hand, you unsuspend, and you keep swinging. And then you can be like a pseudo double blocker if you were to block and then their hand increases, you unsuspend and you can block again. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility that way. Versus BT13, which is just the anti-redirect tech. There's no real big wall decks in the format right now. Like there's MirageGaogamon, but it's not high up on the meta list. So you don't really need the anti-redirect effect yet. Next set, when we get the new Magnamon X antibody, you will definitely be playing this one. So since you'll just swing and they can't do anything.
Yep, between that, Tyrant Kabuterimon, a couple other redirect effects.
Yes, there will be a bunch of wall decks next set. So this card is definitely going back in. But for right now, I think the choices are BT11 Gal, or some people have been playing the starter deck Arrow Vidramon, which is a much more aggressive option. It naturally has jamming, so you get to swing, and it gives Sec +1, inherit if you have 8 or more cards in hand. So it can help you kill a little faster, but in my opinion, it makes the deck a little bit more glass cannon-y. Whereas when you play the blocker, Gal, like I said, you have more versatility. And honestly, the deck doesn't really need extra help finishing the game. Like when you do your combo with burst mode, you're gonna have like plenty of swings. So the extra Sec plus is kind of just like, again, it's personal preference. Do you want to be more aggressive or do you want to have a little bit more flexibility in what you can do?
Yeah, I know. I seem to recall some of the lists at some point were running the offensive plugin as the extra chili sauce to get some extra checks. But I don't know. That's 2 costs. Can you play it as any color as long as you have a tamer, or you can play it as long as you have a tamer regardless of color?
Yes.
That's another thing you could do, I guess, but it seems like it might just be a little bit too much extra. Kind of a win more card.
Yeah, this deck doesn't need that much extra help to finish the game. You just swing so many times. Yeah, you either hit an option or they die.
Right. Yeah, definitely with the diversity of the choices in the level 5s, that's probably another reason why you might want to shy away from that BT11 Galmon if a lot of your level 5s are not searchable. So that's something to consider, depending on how many actual Galgamon you're running, if you want to include that BT11 guy or not.
Correct.
All right, moving into the kind of the stars of the show here, we got the big BT11 MirageGaogamon.
Yes. This is the main guy for of always and forever. He is ridiculous. On Digivolve, bounce to level 5 or lower. If you can't, your opponent adds a top card of security to their hand, and all turns once their turn when their hand is increased. For every 4 cards in their hand, you gain a memory. Just ridiculously good.
Exactly.
It is insane. And then most decks will run 5 to 6 level 6s. You'll have these 4, and then you have a couple options you can go with. The main one that I think you should be going with right now will be BT13 MirageGaogamon. It has Evade. On Digivolve, it bounces a Tamer, and all turns, once per turn, whenever your opponent's hand is increased by an effect, you get to free play Thomas. I think it's just really good. It's amazing in this meta right now because some of the best decks are Poop and Red Hybrid, so you get to bounce those Louis, you get to bounce the Takuyas. It has Evade, so they can't just Evo up into Emperor and just snipe it. They have to Evo and then swing.
Yep. If they have to keep turn, then maybe without that Biome or Warp Takuya, they can't do that off just 3 memory, right?
Exactly. Especially if you bounce their Memset of Takuya and choke them.
Mm-hmm.
It can put them in a big spot. And then with the Evade, if you were to swing, say you have the EX4 Mach-Gao, you get to unsuspend. If you hit something, then you just evade. And then you could use your 3-cost Thomas to unsuspend again and then go do your burst mode plays. So it gives you a little flexibility there. Other things I've seen people run, I've seen some run a Zulong Ace. I've also saw a list in this recent regional that I was playing Imperial Dramon Dragon Mode Ace as their other level 6 of choice. So these are things you can do. I get it why, because it gives you a little bit more defensive options, of course, playing an ace. So you get that free Evo on your opponent's turn. The opposite way is if you do that, you don't get the burst Evo into burst mode, so you have to do the hard Evo for 5, which you will get a memory refund with its effect. But I think just having just all Mirages would be better because then you get to bounce Thomas. And the best part about that is you get to reuse their effects. So you say you swing with a Mirage, unsuspend with 3-cost Thomas, bounce it, and then you get to play it again.
Yeah, that always feels
so you
really
get extra
good
attacks that way.
when you get to burst mode with your already spent Thomas to be able to reuse it, because you're gonna pretty
Exactly.
much refunded likely the full 3 memory that costs to play that BT4 Thomas back down with
Yes.
burst mode.
Yeah, so that would be my argument to just playing Mirages versus using the aces.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you have the big boy burst mode himself, ridiculous. On Digivolve, bounce any Digimon, and then for every 4 cards in their hand, you gain a memory. And then on attack, if they have 9 or more cards in hand, you choose cards from their hand until they have 8, put them on the bottom of the deck, and unsuspend. Not once per turn.
Not once per turn.
So ridiculous. You do your first swing, unsuspend, swing again, use Memset of Thomas, put them to 9, unsuspend again, play Gaomon, go to 9, unsuspend again, bounce something. You get the picture. You just do that till they die.
Yep, you swing many times. And a lot of blue decks have trouble with Quartzmon, which I know Bloom Lord's not as big in the meta right now, but Mirage Burst has never cared about Quartzmon whatsoever.
No,
just bounce that boy back to hand and keep unsuspending.
You keep moving, yeah.
Yep.
It's just ridiculous card. 15k, so you don't die to most things except other level 7s, but you have jamming. You can get that plus 1k boost from your other inherited. So again, you either hit an option or they just die.
Yep. Moving into Tamers, we just have the 2 PhD students themselves. No lore education Tamers admitted.
Yep, only Thomas. You don't want anything else to maximize your ability to burst. So, of course, you have 3-cost Thomas, which is such a good tamer. On play, draw 1, and then if your opponent has 8 or more in hand, you can suspend it to unsuspend a Digimon with Gao in its main, which is really good. You can do it on your rookies. You can do it on any of your level 4s, 5s. It's really versatile. Like, I remember in the regional, I had a match against Seccon, which is a horrible matchup. But I had a Gaogamon with jamming, and I had 2 Thomas on board, and I just swung, suspend Thomas, unsuspend, swing, suspend Thomas, unsuspend, and I did that 2 turns in a row to win the game. It's just
also
just really good.
Being a main effect that's not required, doesn't require like a when attacking unsuspend. If you like somehow get tapped back down with some sort of a security effect, like I don't know, like the starter deck Stymon comes out of security and suspends you.
Yes.
You can just use Thomas to, okay, now I'm good again.
Yep. Yep. And like I said, with a BT13 Mirage, if you swing it unsuspended and you hit something in evade, you can suspend this, unsuspend again. So just a
Mhm.
good tamer. The one you want to bounce with burst mode so you can replay it to get the extra value. And then you have Memsa Thomas, memory setter. When you swing with a Gaomon suspended, a Gaogamon, excuse me, suspended above
Either
players
or,
draw a
actually.
card. Oh, it is, excuse me, it is either or. So yeah, combos perfectly with burst mode. You do your first swing, put them to 8, then swing again, use Thomas, put them to 9, you get to your effect again. And it also helps earlier on if you're trying to dig or you want to trigger BT11 Mirage to gain memory or one of your Mach Gao inherits to increase their hand so you can unsuspend.
Just all
Combos
the
with a lot of
synergy with
things.
this guy, for sure.
Exactly.
All right, and then got some option cards, and the name of the game here is just all consistency for the most part.
Exactly. Most people play 7 to 8 consistency cards. You can play your 4 trainings and then you play 3 to 4 boosts. This is a stack deck. You want to see your stack, you want to see your pieces, you play your consistency cards. It's pretty much it.
Yep, and if you're worried about floodgates, well, guess what? You bounce a lot of stuff on the way up your stack.
Exactly.
So,
Floodgates have never been an issue for this deck.
nope.
Where you have EX4 Galgamon, you have Zudo Ace, you have EX4 Mach Galgamon, all of your Mirages, well, BT11 and Burst Mode, they just bounce everything. So they have to have the full play set of Floodgates on the board,
Pretty
basically,
much. You kind of need
to
about all
stop you
four
from
of
doing
them.
anything. Yeah. So you play your consistency cards, and then some decks have, depending on what you're doing, some flex slots. Full Moon Meteor Impact is the one you will definitely want to try and make room for. It's just a ridiculous card. It's Coquetus Breath, which it initially costs more, but it doesn't because you bounce something in their hand, and for every 4 cards in their hand, you gain a memory. So at base value, you bounce something at 8. This costs 6, and then the security effect is the exact same as Coquetus Breath. So it's just a really good card. If you have a BT11 Mirage on board when you do this, you get an even bigger refund. So
Yeah, it's
this is the
absolutely
card you want to
disgusting.
make room for. And then the other tech slot, some people, if you have it room for, you can play Ice Wall too. It's at 1 for a reason. It's still a
Mhm.
really good card.
I think that rounds up about all the cards I have listed here. So I guess we can take a look at your list used to get top 4 at the regional last Saturday.
Yes.
Already got it
So
pulled up
yeah,
here.
yeah. So here's my list. It's pretty straightforward as what most people will run. A lot of other artists aren't running Madoki Beta, and I think you should. Like I was saying earlier, there's just so much memory gain in the format that it's really free, and not many people are actually playing Floodgates. And this one's kind of free for you, since you don't care about opposing Floodgates, since you bounce in the hand, whereas other decks have to get rid of it. And if you're playing against a deck like Lugamon, where that's an actual issue where they have to hard commit to get rid of it, or they just can't do anything, it's pretty free.
And all your
Everything else
floodgates you
is
play in here are also one-sided floodgates, whereas some of them are multi-sided, like the can't play by effect that works for both players, but both the Madoki Betamon and the Shakomon, that's only on them.
yes, that's correct. So everything else is pretty straightforward. Level 5s, again, if you want to play Mach Galgamon or Air Vidramon, that's a personal preference. 3 to 4 Zudo Ace. Playing the BT13 Mirage versus an Ace instead. There's a lot of different flexibility slots that you can do in this deck depending on your own play style.
All right, that looks pretty great to me. You want to talk about some of the specific matchups in the current format?
Yes,
BT15?
I think the matchups you have in this format are really good for Mirage. So we'll start at the top. You have Numamon, which is probably the best deck in the format right now. You don't care about Numamon. Like all of their on deletion effects, which are a pain for almost every other deck, you just bounce their stack and they get nothing.
Yeah, even swinging into security, it's like, I think we calculate like maybe a 50-50 chance for a 2K swing to actually die. You
Yes.
have 25 cards in this deck that do not kill a 2K out of security.
Mhm. Yeah. So in my experience playing versus Numamon, they have to really high roll you and pressure you because sometimes this deck can be slow. It's a stack deck.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can be slow if you don't see your booster training. If they don't get that high roll and you don't brick, you can just keep their board completely clear. You just keep bouncing everything. And if their removal is pretty kind of bad if they don't have a wide board. Like if they don't have a big board, Monzi X isn't hitting anything.
Yeah, you got that combo for a 7K drain. That's about it. And you do have the
Yes.
all turns plus 1k, they can actually get your 7ks over it, or just Zudomon Ace himself
Yes.
is 8k.
Yes, and that's another reason why I like BT11 Mach-Gao right now. Getting that extra DP boost means their DP drain is even harder for them to achieve. So I think Numamon's a pretty good matchup for you. Their security is pretty weak, is just like their 6s and 7s, which is really just Venusmon and Ruin mode. So you don't really care about anything else. They don't really play any big cost options. So their security is pretty clean for you to just cleave through.
Yeah. Do you find Numon has an easier time dumping cards out of their hand to try to ward off that 8 card threshold that you want for the deck?
No, the opposite. They draw a lot of cards. They
Yeah.
just like yeah. It really doesn't even depend. Like they could play black, purple, or red base. Either way, they're drawing a bunch of cards, so they're just playing into your game plan.
Yeah, it sounds like they would have to make some very deliberate plays, like graft a lot of Satskis from hand, maybe like the Warumanze, pitch the things out of hand to graft a source, and just
Mm-hmm.
make some suboptimal plays just to try to ward off that hand size limit.
Yes. But even then, they're playing to the board, which means you could just bounce the stuff right back and increase
Exactly.
their hand. So they're kind of in a bad position no matter what, unless you are just too slow or you just brick. And then the other big deck would be Leviamon, which is you think it'd be really bad because purple and it has a lot of removal, but all of Leviamon's removal on your turn is level 6 or lower. Once you go to burst mode, they can't do anything. It's either if they're not running Rivals Barrage, you're not dying because Iron Crush, level 6 or lower. 7th Lightning, level 6. Once you're at level 7, you're clean. The only thing you would die to is if you hit Ruin Mode Security when you don't have jamming. Or they play Rivals Barrage. If they don't have any of that, you just cleave through their security and they die.
Yep, so just maybe you want to be a little cautious, swing level 6 Mirage against Leviamon.
Exactly. You never want to swing level 6 unless you have to get that one chip in first before you go to burst mode for game.
Yep.
Otherwise,
sure
you just otherwise you just sit, you go to burst mode, and then you just OTK them.
Yep.
So those are those two big decks. Some of the other decks would be Red Hybrid. I think your Red Hybrid is kind of like Numemon. If they get the super high roll and you're too slow, you'll die. Otherwise, you're pretty good. They have no blockers. Their security is very, very weak. You don't have to worry about hitting anything except if they're playing Blitz Omni, so you can swing freely.
Right.
BT13 Mirage really helps, allow you to bounce to Kuya so you can try and memory choke them if they don't have a second mem setter. It has evade, so they have to do a double kill with Emperor to try to remove your stack. And they do draw a decent amount. They have Koromon, they have their searchers. They play out to the board and allow you to bounce stuff. So I think it's a pretty fair match up, all things considered.
Yeah, you got the Modoki Choki who can just shut off that Ukomon, shut off Gravity Crush if they can't get
Yes.
into the BT7 Burning Greymon to pop it.
Yep. They have to use Burning Gray to pop it. And as for your other matchups, there's Yellow Vaccine, which I kind of think is kind of similar to Numemon. They have a little bit more removal, but BT11 Mach-Gao helps with that DP boost. They play a lot of aces, which is perfect for Zudo Ace. You just strip and bounce those things, get the extra memory back, go into Mirage. They draw a lot of cards. Security is okay. They don't really have security bombs. You can't really like use your floodgates so much as they have a lot of incidental removal. But they don't have protection. So if you other than like using like a Venus to stall for turn, but you can just full moon meteor impact her back to hand and then so you're not too much worried about that. So again, I think it's a pretty decent matchup depending on how you draw. Again, if you brick, you brick, but if you don't, you can pretty much combo kill them unless they just hard go up to like 7 or 8 security. Then you might have an issue OTKing them if you don't have the proper setup. But if you stall long enough, you can get through that with a burst mode.
Seems like you should probably never allow them to even pull off like a Blast Digivolve into a Magnangemon or Angelmon Ace because you're just gonna bounce to level 4, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. You would just bounce everything. So that's probably they're gonna have to hard slam their aces, which is just
That's
free
even
low
better.
for you. Yeah, exactly. This is free. Then there's some other decks like bunnies. I know it did well in the regional over this past weekend, but you don't really care too much. Like if they have the only thing that you have to worry about is the new starter deck level 5 Rappermon, since it can't be bounced on Digivolve and on play, I believe. Otherwise, all the other Rappermons you just bounce with Mirage or your Mock Gauss or Zudo Ace, and then they can't blast Evo into Mega Gargo. So they're kind of just dead in the water if you don't hit an option.
I know Armor Rush has been getting some uptick in popularity lately, and you just bounce those. That's easy.
Yes, yeah. Armor hates bounce, really good. This makes this deck even bigger contender going into next set with the BT16 Magnamon X Antibody, which is an incredible wall deck, but we'll just go back to playing BT13 Mirage to get that anti-redirect tech, jamming, and then you just keep going.
Yep, just go around it.
Just go around it, yeah. And then of course you can always do a Zudo Ace if they don't do like a blinding ray to get that protection pre-swing to strip out those armors, and then there you go.
I guess we can talk maybe a little bit about next set and some of the initial impressions on how you might be changing the deck. One thing I noticed is, of course, that BT16 Ukomon is going to be everywhere, and if you can stick a MirageGaogamon on the board, I believe that takes something to hand when you move out. I believe that is mandatory, so you might be stealing some memory if they push out that BT16 Ukomon.
Yep, stealing memory, maybe still turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this deck it just gets better because you get the BT16 Galgamon, which is just a ridiculous card.
How to properly support multiple archetypes in one go with that BT16 Galgamon. Maybe trying to save the Galaxy deck from from the depths.
Put it on merge.
Not out in English yet, but will be in a couple of months. There's the fella right there.
Yeah, ridiculous. On Digivolve, both players draw a card, and then if your opponent has 80 more cards in hand, or have 3 or more sources for the Galaxy deck, you gain a memory. And then inherited jamming. It's just like, what? Can you create your own card better than this for this deck? I don't think you can.
Like, this deck really need a 1-cost level 4 to go into.
It's even better than that. If you evo this on top of EX4 Galmon, it's free.
Yeah. Just training into it and gain memory. It's not even reducing its own cost.
Exactly. Yeah. This card is ridiculous. This on top of having the anti-redirect from BT13 Makao is one of the reasons why I think this will be a big contender next set.
All right. See, well, I think that's all I had thought to have. Any closing remarks?
If you want to do well this format, play this deck.
Yeah, it seems pretty well suited into the meta right now. I guess any we mentioned SetCon. Any other like potentially problematic matchups you can think of?
The mirror can be interesting. It really comes down to, like most mirrors, who draws better and who has full moon mirror impact in their security.
Yeah, very true. Well said.
Those are about your biggest, most problematic matchups. Everything else is pretty okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's Devas is a thing. It's going in popularity, but that's got aces that you could bounce before they actually ace.
Devas isn't a real issue.
Not a problem.
Unless they get a Fang Long with a blocker inherit, you don't really care.
Yeah.
Because you just bounce their Devas or you bounce their aces. The only ace you care about would be MMO ace, because that can suspend you. And if you don't have a BT4 Thomas to unsuspend, that can stop your plays. But otherwise, their aces don't do anything.
Yeah, and again, you're probably just going to be bouncing that level 5 that would go into a Bancho ace with the Mirage, right?
Yep.
So I guess they have multiple of them out there.
Yep. But then again, they give you a lot of memory, so you could just slam a Zudo ace and just bounce the extra one and just keep going. So Devas isn't that really big of an issue.
All right, that's about all I can think of. Well, thanks for doing this deck profile with us, Charles. And again, congrats on the top 4 at the regionals, and congrats on your invite.
All right, thank
Serialized
you very much.
Omnimon. Beautiful card. All right, that's been it for this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Bancho Boys channel.
See you guys.